Welcome everyone to Ratioed. My name is Harrison Faulkner. What a week, guys. Danielle Smith sworn in as Alberta's 19th Premier on Tuesday, the next Premier of Alberta, and as her first act, her opening act as Alberta Premier, she exploded heads across the political establishment for what seemed to be totally reasonable and totally normal comments. But Danielle Smith made one error. She made one error that she probably wasn't expecting to make. You see, she decided to defend the unvaccinated. That's a big no-no in Canadian political establishment. You can't defend the unvaccinated. If you do, you will be seen as a racist. Now, I know I sound like I'm joking when I say that, but really, check out the reactions we pull on this show. They are honestly calling Danielle Smith a racist for defending the unvaccinated. That's how far this country has slipped. That is where we're at right now. Unbelievable stuff. And also on the show, in what should be really a new segment on the program, it seems like every single show we're talking about anti-racism. Well, in the latest attempt by an Ontario university to fight back against the oppressive racist system in Canada, they have created a freedom lounge for students. This freedom lounge for students, it's accessible to every type of person under the sun you can imagine, except for one group of people. One group of people are not allowed to access the quote-unquote Freedom Lounge at Trent University. I'll let you guys guess who that one group of people might be. You probably know who I'm talking about. And the winner of the Ratio of the Week award this week, well, I'm not going to tell you, but if you follow me on Twitter, you'll know who wins. All I'll say about that is this. This may be the weirdest, strangest, and kind of creepiest tweet we've ever highlighted for this award. It's a deserved winner, believe me, but the tweet itself is very, very strange. The common question for this episode is this. Are the unvaccinated the most discriminated against group you've ever seen in your life? Have you ever seen a group in your life in Canada be more discriminated against than the unvaccinated? That's what Danielle Smith said, and she got absolutely torn apart by Liberal, NDP, and political establishment figures. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Drop a like on the video and share it. And if you're feeling generous, consider donating to us at donate.tnc.news. The link is in the description of this video. All right, let's get into it. Guys, take a look at what Canada's newest premier said on Tuesday. This is what Danielle Smith said at her very first press conference as Alberta's premier. Clearly, she's not interested in tiptoeing around the problems, tiptoeing around the issues, and she's definitely not interested in picking up where her predecessor, Jason Kenney, left off in jailing pastors and shutting down churches. Take a look at what she has to say. And is this not the most refreshing thing you've heard from a political leader all week? Tell me in the comments.
The community that faced the most restrictions on their freedoms in the last year were those who made a choice not to be vaccinated. I don't think I've ever experienced a situation in my lifetime where a person was fired from their job, or not allowed to watch their kids play hockey, or not allowed to go visit a loved one in long-term care or hospital, or not allowed to go get on a plane to either go across the country to see family or even travel across the border. So they have been the most discriminated against group that I've ever witnessed in my lifetime. That's a pretty extreme level of discrimination that we have seen. I don't take away any of the discrimination that I've seen in those other groups that you mentioned, but this has been an extraordinary time in the last year in particular. And I want people to know that I find that unacceptable, that we are not going to create a segregated society on the basis of a medical choice.
I mean, how could you possibly take issue with that statement? If you were not an out-and-out segregationist, if you were not in favor of literally creating a two-tiered society, a society for those that decided to take the vaccine, a set of rules decided for them, and then a whole new set of rules for the unvaccinated, if that wasn't what you wanted in this world, if that wasn't what your whole goal in life was, you probably couldn't take issue with that statement. What did she say there that wasn't even true? Everything she said there was exactly the case. Canadians who have thousands of different reasons as to why they didn't want to take the vaccine were then told by the government at all levels, by the way, this is a municipal, provincial, and federal decision across the board. No one stood up for the unvaccinated at this time. They were told they couldn't fly. They were told they couldn't go see their parents dying in a long-term care center, and they couldn't go watch their kids play hockey. What kind of Canada is that? You see, actually, that's the Canada that the political establishment in this country seemed to love. When Danielle Smith made those comments on Tuesday, I don't think she was expecting that almost all of the political establishment figures in this country, we're talking the Mayor of Calgary, Liberal and NDP MLAs, journalists at the Globe and Mail, I don't think she was expecting them all to turn out to be segregationists. that they actually favor the segregation of the unvaccinated. But however, it turns out to be completely accurate. Take a look at some of these unhinged reactions. Insane stuff. So this first one that I saw was from the former leader of the Alberta Liberal Party. This guy's name is David Kahn. And when I first saw this, I thought he was actually making a joke. I was about to like the tweet, actually. I was about to like this on Tuesday when I first saw it. This person writes, "White supremacy at work." White supremacy at work. That's right, guys. You see, Danielle Smith, although she didn't say anything about white people, although she didn't say anything about any race of any people, it turns out that defending the unvaccinated, saying the unvaccinated are the most discriminated against group of people, is actually white supremacy. How convenient for those segregationists. They can shoot down any argument about the unvaccinated being discriminated against as white supremacy. That's not the only time this comes up from these blue checkmark establishment figures who seem to have completely lost their minds. Take a look. This is from the Mayor of Calgary, Jyoti Gondek. She's the mayor of the biggest city in Alberta. She was very upset about these comments. She was very upset about someone defending the unvaccinated. She wrote this: "Of the things I could say, I choose to focus on demonstrating to this premier the work that our city continues to do around anti-racism." Anti-racism, there it is again, guys. Anti-racism, which just means racism. I'll fix a sentence for Jyoti right here. "I choose to focus on demonstrating to this premier the work that our city continues to do around racism, Indigenous relations, Holocaust remembrance, allyship with the LGBTQ2S+ community, and equity-based awareness." In other words, work that matters. So yes, the unvaccinated who weren't able to see their parents dying in a long-term care center, none of that matters to the Mayor of Calgary. The only thing that matters is LGBTQS community and equity-based awareness, Indigenous relations, Holocaust remembrance, and allyship. Oh, and let's chalk in anti-racism as well. That's what matters to Jyoti, and anyone who defends the unvaccinated, well, they're just pushing what? They're just pushing white supremacy, as David Kahn says. We are definitely not done there. Check out Globe and Mail columnist Robin Urbach. Yes, columnist for Canada's paper of record. This is what she has to say about these unbelievably reasonable comments from Alberta's premier. "This is absolutely true," she says, "if you believe that Danielle Smith is actually two toddlers stacked on top of each other wearing a blazer." "Oh, what's that? You were fired from your job for exercising your right to make a medical decision?" "Oh, sorry. Here's the Globe and Mail columnist, Canada's paper of record, telling you that the only premier standing up for you and your voice is actually just two toddlers stacked up in a blazer. How respectful, how kind, and how normal of a country we are living in." Here's Pam Palmatter, an unhinged professor at Ryerson University, not X University, not Toronto Metrosexual University, Ryerson University. Here's what she has to say. "Prime example of white privilege and another politician playing with fire by pandering to self-victimization of far-right and hate groups for political gain with statements that are outlandish and not based on fact. Albertans deserve better. Hashtag hate, hashtag white privilege, hashtag Canadian politics."
Settle down.
You see that, guys? It's playing with fire to say that the unvaccinated are the most discriminated against group in Canada. Find me, Pam, a group of people that can't get on an airplane to go from one province to the next in their own country. You find me a group, then, of Canadians that were stripped of their liberties and to this day, don't have their jobs back. Unbelievable. Look at where we're at here, guys. It's insane. Any criticism of the public health measures imposed on Canadians unlawfully and unconstitutionally, any criticism of that is seen as playing with fire, white supremacy, and racism. It's insanity. It is insanity. And the fact that there's only one premier saying this speaks to this reality. It speaks to the fact that premiers, politicians, leaders have been so afraid, so convinced that if they say anything offside with the medical establishment, the political establishment, they will be torn to pieces exactly like this. It's incredible. What's so shocking about this is that Danielle Smith was talking about unvaccinated Canadians. Nothing to do with race, nothing to do with anything else other than vaccination status. We know that Indigenous Canadians are in large numbers unvaccinated. We know that Black Canadians are also in large numbers unvaccinated. Is it white supremacists to stand up for their rights? To get on an airplane? To get on a train or a boat? How have we got to this point? Check this out. This is from Danielle Smith, who was famous for implying that a Conservative MP should be shot for comments made in the House of Commons. This is what Danielle Smith had to write. It's amazing that a straight, white, able-bodied woman, wow, Dale, really putting it all into that one little sentence there. Nice job. Straight, white, and able-bodied. If she's able-bodied, you know she can't say a single thing that is offside, especially that she's able-bodied. It's amazing that a straight, white, able-bodied woman equates consequences for a selfish choice with the kinds of discrimination faced by people solely for who they are, like race, gender, sexuality, or disability. The complete lack of self-awareness is boggling. No, Dale, what's boggling is the fact that you really do believe that there are groups in this country that are still discriminated against more than the unvaccinated. You really believe that there have been people fired from the public service, fired from the military for being a specific race that the government didn't like, for being a specific gender, or having a disability that the government didn't like. Oh yeah, and check out this reaction from Charles Adler. Again, not totally unhinged, completely reasonable reaction to Danielle Smith's obviously racist, obviously horrible comments. This is what Charles Adler had to say. The fakest conservative, I should say, in all of Canada, Charles Adler is. This is what he had to say. Has Danielle Smith ever met an Indigenous person? A black person? A brown person? A woman? A brown woman in a hijab? A woman without a hijab in Iran? How do you live on this planet in this century and miss every freaking frame of every scene?
Oh, settle down.
Oh, Charles. First off, let's just go down the list, shall we? Indigenous person. Turns out Danielle Smith has Indigenous ancestry, but I'm sure, Charles, because she said this about the unvaccinated, she must never have met an Indigenous person in her life. Definitely. She's never met an Indigenous person in her life. Also, a woman. I'm sure she's never met a woman in her life either. Definitely not. A brown woman in a hijab. Yes, exactly. Because we know all brown women in a hijab can't get on an airplane. We know a brown woman in a hijab can't get access to restaurants. Right, exactly. Or how about a brown person or a black person? Yes, Charles. Unlike you, who's advocating for segregation in this country right now, black and brown people have the same rights as everyone else. So unless you're living in a different planet, I know you really want to segregate the unvaccinated. I know that's really what you want, dude. But right now, that's not the case. You're going to have to just keep it together. Here's something I've noticed from all the reactions to Danielle Smith's comments. Nowhere has anyone actually provided an example that trumps what the unvaccinated have faced. No one has been able to actually give us a real concrete example of a group of people in Danielle Smith's lifetime that have been more discriminated against. You can talk about it, you can talk all you want, you can explode your head all you want. But until you bring legitimate arguments to the table, real, legitimate, substantive examples, what you're doing is just advocating for segregation. And you sound insane when you do that, by the way. You sound crazy advocating for the segregation of Canadians based on a choice they made on their own. Here's another thing. Obviously, the reality is what Danielle Smith said was completely true. It was completely accurate. She didn't have to walk back or clarify her statements like she unfortunately did the day after on Wednesday. She didn't have to do that because what she said was exactly the case. We can defend the comments she made on their own. It is true that in her lifetime, there isn't a group that has been more discriminated against than the unvaccinated. And we can do that, but I can just tell you from my lifetime. I know exactly. In my lifetime, I am 23 years old. Never in my life have I ever seen the open discrimination from all levels of government and from all different groups in society of the unvaccinated. Not one premier in this country, conservative or liberal, had the guts, had the spine to stand up for these people. And now there's a premier in Alberta who has the spine to say it. She has the spine to say it, and she immediately gets torn apart and called a racist for defending the unvaccinated. So much so that she ends up walking back her statements the next day. No wonder no one really stood up for the unvaccinated until the truckers did in Ottawa. That's what opened the floodgates, and we should remember this. The discrimination against the unvaccinated in this country is unacceptable. It is insane. I'm glad to see we're moving past it, but clearly the establishment, the segregationists living amongst us, they don't want to let it go, guys. They want to hold on to it, and that, to me, is what deserves real scrutiny. Not Danielle Smith's comments, which are totally reasonable and fair. Since we're on the topic of discrimination, let's turn our focus to Trent University in Peterborough, Ontario. And before we go any further, I'll just say this. The segregationists who got really upset at Danielle Smith for saying what she said about the unvaccinated, for defending the unvaccinated, well, they will love this. They would love the Freedom Lounge at Trent University. Check this out. This is what the students at Trent University created to, do their part to fight back against the evil racist system that is obviously, running its course through Trent University, the evil racist system that is, taking place in Ontario and Canada. Obviously, we're such an evil and racist country. So what do we need? What do we do to fight back against this racism? We, of course, use anti-racism. Anti-racism, right? The only way to really combat racism is to just be racist towards white people. So sure enough, check this out. This is the Freedom Lounge. I can't think of a better name for this student lounge at Trent University than, of course, the Freedom Lounge. This is how the Freedom Lounge is described on the Trent University website. In August 2020, the TCSA conducted a review of our policies, training, advocacy, and community engagement practices to recognize the areas in which we can better support anti-racism initiatives, as well as our BIPOC and racialized membership. BIPOC, as you can imagine, is another way to say non-white, Black, Indigenous, people of color. That's BIPOC. This academic year, we are committed to adopting the recommendations outlined within that report. The association is happy to announce the development of the Freedom Lounge on the second floor of the Student Center. This space is a safe, comfortable, and accountable space for BIPOC and racialized students to create community, feel empowered, celebrate their lived experiences, and honor their histories. Within this space, we seek to engage students in initiatives that actively dismantle oppressive, racist, and colonial ideologies and practices. The only problem is, whites are not allowed in the Freedom Lounge. This is a space for BIPOC and racialized students where they can dismantle what they call oppressive, racist, and colonial ideologies and practices. So that's how the website describes the Freedom Lounge. If you actually go to the Freedom Lounge itself in Peterborough, again, you can't go there if you're white, but you can go there if you're non-white. If you go there, this is what the banner reads outside of the lounge itself. Welcome to the Freedom Lounge. This space is for and celebrates the lives of students who identify as Indigenous, Black, Brown, racialized, and students of color. This space does not tolerate homophobia, sexism, racism, anti-Black racism, anti-Indigenous racism, Islamophobia, transphobia, xenophobia, ableism, classism, or any other alternative forms of discrimination. Interesting here, it says the space does not tolerate racism, anti-Black racism, or anti-Indigenous racism. Which is interesting because you might think the very idea of segregated spaces is racist, but that's not actually the case. So you cannot tolerate anti-Black racism, anti-Indigenous racism, and racism while still segregating white people out of your space. Very interesting. It's a new development in Canada. I feel like we've graduated a step up in our segregation in this country. We can now segregate against the unvaccinated and against white people, and it's still not seen as racist. Very interesting stuff here, guys. Again, I think we've elevated this country. We've elevated ourselves to a point so high, standards so high, that we now allow ourselves to segregate against white people and the unvaccinated, and it's totally normalized. Very interesting stuff. Let's get into some of the comments here, guys, and a lot of you are making the point that the so-called Freedom Lounge doesn't sound so free. But I wonder why that could be. Reading that description, there's no space to debate life experiences. There's no space to debate homophobia or whatever else you want to call it, transphobia or discrimination. So given that, of course it has to be free, right? Anyway, this person comments, this literally is racist, geniuses. Two wrongs don't make a right, and racial segregation is cringe, not progress. That is one way to put it. One way to put it as cringe. This person comments, there's nothing like a good Freedom Lounge through segregation. Yes, how free. So freeing to be in a place that doesn't allow certain groups of people. I can't think of a better place to be if I were really under duress at Trent University, because I can only imagine the need to create the Freedom Lounge implies to me that Trent University in Peterborough, Ontario was such a horrible, racist, wicked place. The only place where racialized BIPOC students can get some respite from the overwhelming racism on campus is in the Freedom Lounge. And then this person writes, I could be wrong, but I believe this is known as racism. Here we go, guys. Ratio of the week time. And the winner this week is a new winner. We've got a new winner on the show. That's always exciting. And the winner is Canada's favorite eco-zealot, our favorite climate activist, Canada's climate change and environment minister, Stephen Guilbeault. He fired off this great tweet on Tuesday, and he wanted to, chime in on the International Day of the Girl. Liberal MPs in caucus, they always want to tweet on these fake sort of celebratory days to somehow spin it into a way to promote their own political agenda. Sure enough, Stephen Guilbeault gave us this doozy right here. Youth, especially young girls, are at the forefront of the impacts of #climate change. What? What are you talking about, man? Especially young girls are at the forefront of climate change? No explanation, of course, but it keeps going. We have a responsibility on this and every other day to protect the rights and future of girls everywhere. #International Day of the Girl. Very weird, very strange tweet from Stephen Guilbeault, our Greenpeace activist in chief. Very strange guy to go along with a very strange tweet. This tweet got over 940 replies and just got over that 105 likes mark. 105 likes to 946 replies. By the time you see this, this will definitely have over 1,000 replies. So definitely a good, strong ratio to send us off this week. I want to read some of the hilarious comments because they all kind of point in the same direction, which is, what is wrong with you, dude? You sound like a creep. That's what they're all saying to Stephen Guilbeault. And this is what some of the comments are. Why especially young girls? Do they experience things differently? Your boss at Justin Trudeau seems to know the answer. Ask him. Boom, that's a deep cut right there. Deep cut, Stephen. Deep cut right there. They're just experiencing climate change differently, right? That's what he must be getting at. They're just experiencing it differently. This person comments, stay away from my daughters. Yeah, you know what, Stephen Guilbeault? Keep your weird International Day of the Girl climate change stuff away and everyone will be just chill. Everyone will be fine if you just take it easy there, bud. This person writes, this is an NPC in a simulation. It has to be. You know, you would think, but unfortunately, that is our climate change and environment minister. Of course it is, right? Of course. Under Justin Trudeau's government, expect nothing less. All right, that's going to do it for us this week on the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Harrison Faulkner. I will catch you tomorrow on Fake News Friday, and this is Ratioed.